Chapter 2743, Astonishing Upper Zone. Chapter 2743, Astonishing Upper Zone. Shifeng was curious about the upper zone. Hence, he did not hesitate to respond to Kuruei's urging. However, just as he was about to step off the platform, a voice came from behind him. Wait a minute. The owner of this voice was none other than the short-haired youth, Yang Wuming. What do you want? Shifeng asked, puzzled. Shifeng was relatively curious about Yang Wuming's existence, as well. In the past, Yang Wuming had been a high and mighty existence in God's domain, like a god of war that overlooked all life. Yet, now, he was only a young boy whose eyes blazed with intense fighting spirit as he looked at Shifeng. What's your name? Yang Wuming asked. Shifeng responded curtly. Shifeng. I'll remember that. Yang Wuming silently repeated Shifeng's name in his mind several times. He then looked at Shifeng and said earnestly, although I lost to you in the mental strength competition today, I will quickly reach the special grade standard. I will challenge you again at that time. Challenge me? Shifeng chuckled. He then shook his head and said, I'm afraid I don't have that kind of time. I'm a busy person. Shifeng did not lie to the boy. He had to not only resolve Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose's problem but also attend to plenty of guild affairs as well as quests awaiting completion. Previously, he had still lacked strength. However, now that he had reached Tier 4, there were many problems he could begin tackling. Hence, he did not have time for Yang Wuming's challenge. This isn't up to you. Yang Wuming ignored Shifeng's thoughts. In a sonorous and forceful tone, he said, one of my goals is to be number 1 in Yuantian City's upper zone, and you're my first obstacle. Only after defeating you can I get closer to my goal. It seems you like challenges. Shifeng wasn't particularly surprised at Yang Wuming's declaration. After giving the matter some thought, he said, how about this? I'll give you one chance to challenge me. So long as you meet my condition, you can challenge me at any time. What do you think? Say it, Yang Wuming said confidently. Do you play God's domain? Shifeng asked. I've been playing it for some time now. Looking at Shifeng strangely, Yang Wuming asked, are you telling me to defeat you in God's domain? Kuruei, who stood nearby, heard Yang Wuming's words and couldn't help snickering. You must be confident in yourself, huh? Do you even know who he is? You want to defeat him in God's domain? Kuruei scoffed at Yang Wuming. No matter who he is, I will win. Yang Wuming did not waver in the slightest. Although he started having some doubts about Shifeng's identity, these were all trivial matters. What was most important to him was defeating Shifeng. No, you misunderstand. Shifeng chuckled. I'm not requiring you to defeat me in God's domain. You just need to beat a friend of mine. Sure. Yang Wuming nodded. Tell me their name. Once I reach Tier 3, I'll beat that friend of yours in no time. Then, I'll come to challenge you. Her name in God's domain is Violet Cloud. Shifeng inwardly breathed out a sigh of relief when he heard Yang Wuming agree to his suggestion. You can head to Silverwing City to look for her. So long as you defeat her, I'll accept your challenge. Since a talent like Yang Wuming had come knocking on his door, Shifeng naturally wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. If he could rope Invincible Swallow into Zero Wing, it would be akin to adding wings to a tiger. The overall strength of the guild's top combatants would soar. No problem. I'll seek her out afterward. Yang Wuming responded without hesitation, his expression still as confident as before. However, after hearing Shifeng's suggestion, Kuruei looked at Yang Wuming with slightly different eyes. Now, there was a hint of pity in her gaze. I hope you don't despair too much when you meet with Violet Cloud, Kuruei silently prayed for Yang Wuming. Kuruei had witnessed Violet Cloud in action. Even the old monsters of super guilds couldn't outmatch her. In fact, even mythology's divine spear demon only managed to fight her to a draw. At this time, there were most likely only a handful of people capable of defeating Violet Cloud. Let's go. Shifeng couldn't help shaking his head and chuckling when he noticed Kuruei secretly praying for Yang Wuming. He then walked toward the distant street. When Shifeng said he would get himself registered now, Kuruei's face immediately shone with excitement. She then dragged Shifeng toward the tallest building, situated at the foot of the mountain. Yang Wuming remained by the platform, waiting for someone to guide him. As Shifeng walked along the streets on the levitating mountain, he could feel his mind and body being enriched. He also started adapting to the tripled gravity here. So, this is the real upper zone? Shifeng couldn't help his shock. Ordinary people would have difficulty even moving their bodies under tripled gravity. Shifeng could shrug off the effects of the higher gravity due to his astonishing physical fitness. Even so, he still felt very uncomfortable in such an environment. However, after stepping onto the mountain, the discomfort disappeared. It was as if there was a special energy source constantly enriching his weakened body. Meanwhile, this steady cycle of exhaustion and replenishment also served to strengthen his physique continually. His arduous physical training regimen in the outside world was basically a joke in the upper zone. If all upper zone residents experienced such strengthening effects, so long as they did not suffer any injuries, they shouldn't have any problems living up to 120 years old. Do you now understand how different the upper zone is from the world you know? Kurue asked, smiling. Everyone living here is growing physically stronger by the moment. Even without intensive training, the physical fitness of people living here can quickly rival that of Honglian masters. According to the rumors floating about in the outside world, the lifespan of people living in the upper zone has reached 150 years. In reality, that is only the lifespan of those living in the upper zone's base layer. You must have noticed the mountainside and summit, as well. Those are the middle and top layers. The people residing there possess truly astonishing physical fitness and lifespans. The average lifespan in the middle layer is 180 years, while in the top layer, it's 200 years. This is already beyond human limits. In ancient times, 200 years was already enough for a change in dynasties. On the other hand, those living at the top would only be entering their prime after reaching 120 years old. Speaking up to this point, Kurue gazed at the mountaintop, full of yearning. The upper zone's houses are stratified? Shifeng asked strangely. Of course. There is only so much space on this mountain. Even with the Boulder Corporation's wealth and status, we can only live in the base layer. The middle layer isn't a place one can live in just by having wealth and status, Kurue grumbled in frustration. If you want to live in the middle layer, your authority in the upper zone must reach a certain level. For example, you currently already have Grade 1 authority. Grade 1 authority is the highest authority available in the base layer. If you manage to elevate your authority level to advanced grade, you can live in the middle layer. What do you mean by these authority levels? Shifeng asked in confusion. He roughly understood the purpose of the upper zone's authority levels. However, he still didn't know the exact details. Right, I haven't told you the details yet. After a slight pause, Kurue continued, money and status are the least important things in the upper zone. What's most important is your mental strength and authority level. Authority in the base layer is divided into 3 levels. The higher your authority, the better the items you can buy in exchange from the Green God Company. You can think of the upper zone as the Green God Company's trading market. Grade 3 authority is the lowest, and the items you can purchase at this authority level are also of the most inferior quality. However, it is still many times better than what people without authority can get. At the very least, you have the right to purchase basic housing in the base layer. You won't need to pay astronomical prices to rent a house. After reaching Grade 2 authority, you can purchase items that normally are not available in the outside world, for example, the life potion that only appears during the Green God Company's auctions. At Grade 2 authority, you can also purchase villas in the base layer and have an independent private space. At Grade 1 authority, things start to get amazing. Not only will there be more items available for purchase, but you can also participate in the Green God Company's contribution competition, which takes place every 3 months. So long as you rank within the competition's top 3, you'll receive permission to live in the middle layer for 3 months. You've already seen the benefits available in the base layer. Well, the middle layer's benefits are even more exaggerated. Anyone who visits the middle layer once wouldn't wish to leave. Just like your current self, after tasting the base layer's benefits, you wouldn't want to live in the outside world anymore. Moreover, you can purchase items beyond your imagination in the middle layer. According to rumors, the Green God Company's life water can be bought there. Life water is much stronger than life potion. Supposedly, it can perfectly repair any damage to the body and even increase a person's lifespan. At this point, Kurue shook her head and sighed helplessly. For people living in the upper zone's base layer, their yearning for the middle layer was akin to the yearning outsiders had for the upper zone. However, let alone ascending to the middle layer, just gaining grade 1 authority was already a challenge for most people. Life water? Shifeng couldn't help being shocked. He never thought that there would be something even more potent than life potion. Moreover, it was something that could perfectly heal all injuries. If that's true, healing Gentle Snow's and Aqua Rose's mental injuries shouldn't be a problem. How do I participate in this contribution competition? Shifeng asked Kurue. Initially, he only guessed that the upper zone would have a way to heal Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose. He hadn't been confident before. Now that he knew there was a way to do so, what he needed to do next was simple. You want to take part in it? Kurue was stunned by Shifeng's question. Do you know what kind of people participate in that competition? What? Shifeng asked curiously. Almost every one of them is the heir of a major corporation. Moreover, they are the best among their generation, Kurue said slowly. You can't even begin to imagine the resources they have at their command. Currently, you don't even have the 1 million trade points required to purchase an ordinary house in the base layer, let alone obtaining the Green God Company's contribution points. At grade 1 authority, you can exchange up to 1,000 trade points per day for 10,000 credits per point. You can also find work in the upper zone or complete tasks to earn trade points and minimal contribution points. Do you know how difficult it is to earn the Green God Company's contribution points? That's not something that can be bought with money. You have to trade rare resources or help the Green God Company discover exceptional talents to obtain these points. It's impossible for you. Shifeng had a headache when he heard Kurue's explanation. He never thought that the competition's difficulty would be so high. For the current Zero Wing, securing rare resources in the real world was simply a dream. As for helping the Green God Company discover talents, that was most likely even more difficult than securing rare resources. Wait, no. It's not absolutely impossible, Kurue said after something occurred to her. Recently, the Green God Company suddenly began purchasing God's Domain's 7 luminaries crystals in bulk. Moreover, they're offering lucrative exchange rates. 1 unit of 7 luminaries crystal can be exchanged for 1,000 trade points and 10 contribution points. However, for the current Zero Wing, ranking in the competition is still a pipe dream. The current competition has been going on for nearly a month already. The last place participant has accumulated 16,000 contribution points, while the first place participant has accumulated 110,000 points. Even if you sold Zero Wing now, you still wouldn't have enough 7 luminaries crystals to rank within the top 3. No wonder so many corporations suddenly decided to enter God's domain. So, they did it for the 7 luminaries crystals? Shifeng suddenly had an epiphany and inwardly celebrated this discovery. For the various major corporations, money wasn't a problem. However, money wasn't enough to enter the upper zone's middle layer. Various rare resources were necessary. Meanwhile, God's Domain's 7 luminaries crystals were undoubtedly easier to obtain than the various rare resources the Green God Company required. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Upon seeing that Shifeng still hadn't given up, Kurue shook her head and pointed at the 100-story building nearby, then said, if you are intent on participating, you can register there. The staff at the registration area will tell you how exactly you can acquire contribution points. Shifeng nodded in response, a plan having formed in his mind already. If it were any other item, he would indeed have difficulty fulfilling the Green God Company's requirement. However, 7 luminaries crystal was a different story. While acquiring 7 luminaries crystals wouldn't be easy for him, he wasn't exactly without options. Afterward, Shifeng followed Kurue into the Green God Company's office building in the base layer. The Green God Company's building had very few people inside. Even after arriving in the second-floor registration area, Shifeng had come across only 2 other people. One of them was a 26-year-old beauty, while the other was Hong Xinyuan. From the humble way Hong Xinyuan was conversing with the woman, it was evident she held a higher position than Hong Xinyuan. Hong Xinyuan's eyes even carried a hint of respect as he looked at her. "Kurue, you're finally here." Hong Xinyuan breathed out a sigh of relief when he saw Kurue and Shifeng enter the registration area. He then asked strangely, "Where's Mushin? Didn't she come with you?" Chapter 2744, Half-Step Master. Chapter 2744, Half-Step Master. My sister? Kurue smiled at Hong Xinyuan's question, then answered joyfully, "I'm afraid she won't be able to enter today. She'll have to wait until tomorrow to do so." "She can't enter?" Hong Xinyuan grew even more confused at Kurue's words. "Why can't she enter? She has grade 2 authority. Who dares stop her?" Normally, anyone with formal identification in the upper zone could enter and leave the upper zone freely. Although some circumstances could result in residents being prohibited from entering or outright banned from the upper zone, once someone reached grade 2 authority, even the base layer's supervisors wouldn't have the courage to stop them from entering the upper zone. No, nobody stopped her." Kurue shook her head, then giggled and said, "It's just that the mental path is activated today." The mental path? Realization dawned upon Hong Xinyuan. However, he quickly noticed a problem. He then turned to Shifeng and asked, "How did you come in, then? He must have cleared the mental path, right?" The woman seated beside Hong Xinyuan said leisurely as she glanced at Shifeng. "He cleared the mental path? How is this possible?" Hong Xinyuan stared at Shifeng in disbelief. No matter how Hong Xinyuan looked at it, Shifeng was definitely past the age of 20. If Shifeng wanted to conquer the mental path, the young man's mental strength needed to be of a similar grade to his own, which was the special grade. However, in the Yuantian City Upper Zone's history, never had a youngster with such monstrous mental strength appeared before. "That's right. Uncle Hong, Shifeng indeed cleared the mental path. You should have seen it for yourself." Everyone in the entrance hall was dumbfounded, Kurue said, nodding, with an excited expression on her face. When Kurue finished speaking, the seated woman stood up and approached Shifeng. "Hello, I am Xia Qingying, the general manager of the base layer." The woman introduced herself to Shifeng. "I didn't expect that the person old Hong mentioned would actually possess special grade mental strength." Xia Qingying's sudden actions gave Hong Xinyuan a fright. Despite being only 26 years old, Xia Qingying was the general manager of this upper zone's base layer. Her authority was among the top 3 in the base layer. Her identity and status were astonishing. Xia Qingying's taking the initiative to introduce herself to Shifeng was 10 times more shocking than Shifeng's achievement of having cleared the mental path. After a moment of surprise, Hong Xinyuan hurriedly stepped forward. "Shifeng, General Manager Xia is a busy person. Normally, even the base layer's supervisors have a difficult time meeting her. She deliberately made time today to personally help with registering your identity and authority," Hong Xinyuan explained. Xia Qingying wasn't an individual just anyone could meet. Now that Xia Qingying was taking the initiative to befriend Shifeng, Hong Xinyuan naturally had to get him to seize this opportunity. This way, the young man would face fewer troubles when residing in the upper zone. "Hello, General Manager Xia," Shifeng said, nodding. "I will have to trouble you today." Shifeng naturally understood what Hong Xinyuan meant in his explanation. At the same time, he felt grateful to Hong Xinyuan. "It's no trouble. Such matters originally fall within my purview as a general manager. Only, I am usually busy, and there are very few people who come to register. Therefore, I typically have several months' worth of applicants gather on a specific date to conduct an official registration," Xia Qingying said, chuckling as she carefully inspected Shifeng. "Your appearance, on the other hand, is truly astonishing. Not only did you clear the mental path under the age of 25, but you also spent only 13 minutes to do so. This is the first time I have seen a talent of your caliber in this upper zone." "What? 13 minutes?" Hong Xinyuan was shocked once more. Previously, Hong Xinyuan thought that Shifeng's achievement was only getting through the mental path. It didn't occur to him that Shifeng had spent such a short time clearing it. When other individuals with special grade mental strength traversed the mental path, their average time was around 40 minutes, about 10 minutes longer than the average clear time for individuals under 20 years old. Yet, Shifeng had spent only 13 minutes on the mental path. For a moment, Hong Xinyuan couldn't help wondering whether Xie Qingying was playing a joke on him. That's right. This person here has broken the Yuantian City Upper Zone's mental path clear record for those under the age of 25. Xie Qingying nodded. She then looked at Shifeng and smiled. If I don't hurry to register talents like yourself, I'm afraid those old fellows above will nag me to death. At Xie Qingying's words, realization also dawned upon Hong Xinyuan. With such frightening mental strength, Shifeng's standard was most likely close to that of mental strength masters. Mental strength masters. There was not a single mental strength master residing in the base layer of Yuantian City's upper zone. The middle layer only had several of such individuals. Moreover, every one of these individuals possessed identities and statuses that even the Boulder Corporation feared. Even though Shifeng had yet to reach the standard of mental strength masters, his talent was more than enough for the various upper zones to fight over him. You overpraise me, General Manager Xie. I just got lucky. I believe it won't be long before the upper zone has many people who surpass me. Truthfully, Shifeng felt somewhat guilty when receiving Xie Qingying's attention. This was because he had relied on a trick to get through the mental path. His actual mental strength was most likely at the advanced grade only. He was still far from reaching special grade. By his estimates, a special grade mental strength should be equivalent to a near Tier 5 concentration standard in God's domain. However, his current concentration standard was only at the intermediate Tier 4 standard, which was still far from the Tier 5 standard. We've talked for quite some time now. We should get on with official business, Xie Qingying said, changing the topic after seeing Shifeng at a loss in this situation. Smiling, she continued, the formal registration for identification is simple. I only need to scan you with a device, and you'll become an official member of Yuantian City's upper zone. The troublesome part is deciding what rewards should be given to you. Aren't the rewards for clearing the mental path fixed? Shifeng asked curiously. Previously, he heard from Kurue that anyone who successfully cleared the mental path would receive 10,000 trade points and 1 life potion from the Green God Company. The life potion aside, just the trade points awarded were already significant. In the upper zone, trade points were as important as credits in the outside world because all transactions within the upper zone were conducted using the Green God Company's trade points. Moreover, depending on one's authority level, the number of trade points one could exchange for would differ. People without authority could exchange for only 100 trade points per day, while Grade 3 authority could exchange for 200 points, Grade 2 for 500 points, and Grade 1 for 1,000 points. Hence, while one trade point was equivalent to 10,000 credits in the upper zone, 10,000 credits were not necessarily equivalent to one trade point. There were some people who could make a fortune just by reselling their trade points. However, those who would actually do this were generally crazy, and the various corporations operating in the upper zone were more than happy to see such fools. After all, a standard meal prepared by the Green God Company already cost 30 trade points. People without authority could have only 3 standard meals per day. That was equivalent to 300,000 credits per meal. Just hearing about this made Shifeng think that the upper zone was really a different world from the world he lived in. Although his physique had improved significantly and he now required higher quality food to support his body, 300,000 credits could still buy him several months' worth of food. However, in the upper zone, he could only get 1 meal for such a sum. Meanwhile, this was only board. There were also many training facilities in the base layer for rapidly improving physical fitness and even facilities that helped improve mental strength. All these facilities cost trade points to use. Basic training facilities cost 20 points per hour, while advanced training facilities cost 50 points per hour. It was no exaggeration to say that only people with Grade 2 authority or higher could satisfy their daily needs in the upper zone. Of course, so long as one had sufficient authority, one could also accept work from the Green God Company to earn some points and maintain their daily lifestyle in the upper zone. Take Shifeng, for example. With Zero Wings fortune, He was basically a pauper who couldn't afford even ordinary housing. Hence, 10,000 trade points was a huge fortune to him. It's fixed, but that reward is only meant for those under the age of 20, Xia Qingying said, nodding. There is no fixed reward for people who clear the mental path above the age of 20 and under the age of 25. Not to mention, you managed to break the under 25's clear record. Can I ask for life water, then? Shifeng couldn't help asking. Life water? Xia Qingying smiled all of a sudden. Do you know that life water is incredibly precious even in the Green God Company? Even if you become a mental strength master at your age, obtaining a bottle of life water wouldn't be easy. The standard price of a bottle of life water is 1 million contribution points, in addition to 30 million trade points. It's that expensive? Shifeng was surprised by Xia Qingying's words. Expensive? Shaking her head, Xia Qingying said with a smile, life water is one of the Green God Company's greatest masterpieces. Although it can't bring the dead back to life, so long as a person still has a breath in them, they can recover from all injuries completely over time. Life water can even extend a person's lifespan and allow them to maintain youthful vitality for another 60 years. 60 years is already close to a lifetime for ordinary people. Meanwhile, not only does life water allow you to live for an additional lifetime, but you will also retain your youthful vitality throughout this period. Do you still think it is expensive? Shifeng couldn't refute Xia Qingying's words. In fact, he even strongly agreed with her. For the leaders of the various international corporations, money was inconsequential. They could quickly earn it back even if they lost it. However, they had only one life to live. If these people had the opportunity to live for another lifetime, they most likely wouldn't hesitate to spend their entire accumulated fortune. Take the emperors of ancient times, for example. They could do anything for longevity. Meanwhile, since Shifeng was so interested in life water, Hong Xinyuan couldn't help advising him, Shifeng, you should stop thinking about life water. Even the people living in the middle layer can hardly afford one. You should prioritize improving your mental strength for now. So long as your mental strength improves, your entry into the middle layer will be just around the corner. That's right. Let's end the talk on life water here. Xia Qingying also felt that it was unnecessary to continue talking about life water. After all, it was still too soon for Shifeng to obtain one. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Afterward, Xia Qingying scanned Shifeng with the quantum watch on her wrist. Immediately, all available data on Shifeng appeared on it. Your identification registration is complete. After looking at Shifeng's data, Xia Qingying said with satisfaction, next, we have to determine your reward. Not only have you cleared the mental path, but you even broke the existing clear record. As the base layer's general manager, I can give you two options. The first option is to reward you with 500,000 trade points and 50 life potions or medicines of equivalent value. The second option is to reward you with an ordinary house in the base layer. You may pick one of these two rewards. Chapter 2745, Different World. Chapter 2745, Different World. The rewards are so excellent. Shifeng was stunned momentarily by the rewards Xia Qingying mentioned. He couldn't believe that just by clearing the mental path above the age of 20, he would get 50 times the reward of everyone else. They're not particularly excellent. However, they're the best rewards I can give you within my authority. If you were one of the Green God Company's internal members, you would receive a much more generous reward. In fact, your authority level would even be elevated to the advanced grade directly, Xia Qingying said. She then smiled and asked, may I know if you are interested in joining our company? Thank you for your offer, General Manager Xia, but I am used to operating freely by really don't wish to be restrained. Joining the Green God Company might be the dream of many people, but he knew that the Green God Company had many restrictions. This was also the reason Mushin and Karue did not join the company but retained their connection with the Boulder Corporation instead. What a pity, Xia Qingying sighed when she heard Shifeng's answer. If a talent like Shifeng joined the Green God Company, he would have climbed to a position not lower than hers in the upper zone. After all, mental strength masters were incredibly valuable to the upper zone. The Green God Company paid astronomical prices to cultivate mental strength masters. However, even now, the company hadn't managed to cultivate many. Shifeng, this is a good opportunity for you. If you get 50 bottles of phantom potions, which is of equivalent value to life potions, you might be able to elevate your mental strength to the next level, Kurue said, her eyes glowing with excitement when she heard Xia Qingying's offer. Although life potion was something that could be exchanged and each bottle cost only 5,000 points, there was a limit on the number of bottles a person could exchange. People without authority could exchange for only 1 bottle per year, while Grade 3 authority could exchange for 2 bottles per year, and Grade 2 authority for 5 bottles per year. If one wanted to purchase more, they would have to buy them at a much more exorbitant price from other people. Meanwhile, the Phantom Potion was an incredibly magical drug the Green God Company developed that could sharpen and improve one's mental strength. Anyone with ambition in the upper zone would try to exchange for it. 50 bottles of Phantom Potions. She had never even seen so many Phantom Potions in her life before. With that many Phantom Potions, she could definitely achieve a breakthrough within a year and elevate her authority to Grade 2. General Manager Xia, does the Green God Company have any medicine that can heal mental damage? Shifeng asked as he looked at Xia Qingying. Currently, life water was definitely out of his reach. Hence, he could only seek inferior alternatives to stabilize Gentle Snow's and Aqua Rose's mental states temporarily for now. We do, but these medicines are much more valuable than life potion, Xia Qingying answered as she looked at Shifeng strangely. She couldn't understand why Shifeng would want something like this. However, she still explained, out of all the injuries out there, mental trauma is the most difficult to treat. If you wish to purchase such medicine, you can only do so after entering the middle layer. However, you are not qualified to enter the middle layer yet. I can buy them only in the middle layer? Shifeng frowned. He then said, General Manager Xia, I've decided. I will take the ordinary house. When Hong Xinyuan heard Shifeng's decision, he couldn't help looking at the young man in surprise. Hurriedly, he dissuaded Shifeng, you're crazy. It's not easy to get 50 bottles of Phantom Potion. Even with your Grade 1 authority, you'd need 5 years to redeem that many. The Green God Company has a completely different evaluation for those who reach advanced grade authority before and after the age of 25. Before the age of 25, humans would still be in their growth stage. Reaching the advanced grade authority before 25 meant they still had potential for growth. The Green God Company would prioritize nurturing such talents even if these talents were outsiders. An example of this would be how Xia Qingying was showing so much care for Shifeng right now. However, if Shifeng was already over 25 years old by the time he reached the advanced grade authority, the Green God Company's evaluation of him would plummet. Before Hong Xinyuan could continue trying to dissuade Shifeng, Xia Qingying suddenly extended a hand to stop the older man. She then looked at Shifeng with a strange gaze. It seems you are adamant on restoring mental trauma. You actually gave up the possibility to improve yourself rapidly within a short period and settled for a house that can just barely maintain and heal a person's mental state, Xia Qingying said, seemingly having seen through Shifeng's intentions. She then smiled lightly and continued, okay, since this is your decision, I won't meddle with it. However, I should still give you a reminder. The upper zone isn't as simple as you think it is. Life here is not easy. If you wish to help someone, the fastest way to do so would be to raise your own authority. Anything else is just futile effort. I understand. Thank you for the reminder, General Manager Xia, Shifeng replied gratefully. Also, I wish to participate in the contribution competition. Can I register for it now? An individual of Xia Qingying's status probably wouldn't pay people like himself a second glance under normal circumstances. She had gone out of her way to help him this time only because she admired the excellent potential he had shown. However, Shifeng understood himself very clearly. In reality, he was still far from the standard of a mental strength master. Even with the Phantom Potion's help, he could, at best, elevate his mental strength to the special grade. In his situation, such an achievement would be of no help whatsoever. Rather than doing something meaningless, he would rather stabilize Gentle Snow's and Aqua Rose's conditions by relying on the upper zone's environment. After all, from what he heard from Karue, people who entered the upper zone without gaining any authority would have to struggle to survive in the upper zone unless someone provided them with accommodation. However, obtaining a residence in the upper zone was easier said than done. Even an ordinary housing unit cost 1 million trade points. 1 million trade points. That was equivalent to 10 billion credits in the outside world. Moreover, even if he had that kind of money, it would still take him a very long time to exchange for 1 million trade points. Most importantly, every housing unit had a limited occupancy. An ordinary housing unit could accommodate 5 people at most, whereas the independent villas could have up to 20. For the various major corporations, let alone 20 slots, even 100 slots wouldn't be enough. After all, who didn't have close friends? Who didn't have sons and daughters? Who wouldn't wish to live in the upper zone forever? Hence, he would be dreaming if he thought he could borrow other people's houses. It might be fine if he were alone, but if he wanted to help other people, he would need an ordinary housing unit of his own. The contribution competition? It seems you're more extraordinary than I thought. In that case, I have nothing more to say, Xia Qingying said, nodding. She then transferred a message from her quantum watch to Shifeng's and said, "This housing unit in the 6th Southern District will be yours from now on." Shifeng was overjoyed when he saw the information displayed on his quantum watch. Although it was called an ordinary house, its floor area was still more than 200 square meters, definitely enough for 5 people to live comfortably. "I have registered you for the contribution competition. However, I'm afraid the likelihood of you catching up with the other participants is low, especially if you are aiming for the top 3. Every one of the top 3 participants has more than 100,000 points already. I heard they have the backing of God's Domain's super guilds. It's impossible for you to catch up to them now," Xia Qingying said as she looked at Shifeng. "However, you can try competing for the top 20 positions. Our company plans to offer the top 20 winners the right to purchase 3 items from the middle layer. You can give it a try at that time." Shifeng was slightly surprised by Xia Qingying's words. Hurriedly, he thanked her. "Thank you, General Manager Xia." Afterward, Xia Qingying spoke a few words with Hong Xinyuan before departing the building. From her haste, it was evident she was truly busy. Meanwhile, Karue was greatly angered and frustrated by Shifeng's decision. She never thought that Shifeng would give up on such an excellent opportunity to improve himself. Even Hong Xinyuan shook his head over Shifeng's decision. After instructing Karue to guide Shifeng, he also gave Shifeng a few reminders. However, unlike Karue and Hong Xinyuan, Shifeng felt very happy with his current situation. This was because he had reaped a massive harvest from his visit to the upper zone this time. He had also finally understood the importance of 7 luminaries crystals and found a way to heal gentle snow and aqua rose. He had even found a way to help outsiders into the upper zone. Once his authority reached the advanced grade and he entered the upper zone's middle layer, he could spend 100,000 contribution points to exchange for 1 upper zone reserve slot. While he could exchange for only 3 slots per year with this method, this was still good news for him. After all, his goal wasn't simply to live in the upper zone by himself. As the sun set, Karue brought Shifeng to his residence in the 6th Southern District and left without saying a word, evidently unhappy with Shifeng's decision. This left Shifeng standing alone in front of the residential building's entrance. "Isn't this house a little too amazing?" Shifeng was stunned when he entered Unit 02 on the 35th floor. Not only was the housing unit fully equipped with smart facilities, but it even boasted a comprehensive array of exercise equipment. After entering the house, Shifeng also felt much more comfortable than before, as if his whole body was soaked in a nutrient solution, and he could continuously improve his physical fitness even without doing any training. His brain also felt clearer than ever, like when he was in a mana-rich environment in God's domain. Moreover, every bedroom in the house was equipped with a state-of-the-art fearless virtual gaming cabin, something even more amazing than the virtual gaming cabins Zero Wing had purchased. According to Shifeng's memories, the fearless virtual gaming cabin was a model that would appear in the outside world only 3 years later. The fearless cabin did not just allow players to fully immerse themselves in God's domain. It also improved the player's sensitivity. In particular, The cabin improved mana sensitivity by at least 20% and allowed players to exhibit 100% of their mental strength in God's domain. Back when the fearless cabins were first released to the public, the various corporations had fought over them frantically. Each unit had sold for at least 100 million credits. Moreover, the fearless cabins were always in short supply. Even 10 years after God's Domain's launch, first-rate guilds could only afford to supply their executives with fearless cabins. The situation of second-rate guilds had been even worse. Even a guild leader like Shafong did not get to use a fearless cabin. I never dreamed I would have the opportunity to experience the fearless cabin in this life. Shafong was deeply moved by this situation. At this moment, he finally understood why people who entered the upper zone would be unwilling to leave it. The various environmental benefits aside, just the technology one could enjoy here was leaps and bounds ahead of the outside world's technology. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. A 20% increase to mana sensitivity. Even ordinary Tier 3 experts would experience a huge boost in combat power if they received such an improvement. What more peak experts and apex experts? The increase in mana sensitivity would also help players tackle their future promotions. After all, mana was the foundation of everything in God's domain. The more one understood about the operation and control of mana, the stronger one would become. It seems I should have Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose come over as soon as possible. These fearless cabins alone could increase their chances of reaching Tier 4 by at least 10%. As Shafong looked at the pitch-black gaming cabin that was the size of a double bed, many thoughts and plans ran through his mind. After he gained a rough understanding of the house's functionality, he hopped into his fearless cabin without hesitation, intending to experience the effects of this legendary gaming cabin properly. Not to mention, it wouldn't be easy for him to return to Zero Wing's headquarters at this time. Once the cabin linked with God's Domain's main god system, Shafong muttered in his heart, "Log in." Chapter 2746, Fearless Cabins Effects. Chapter 2746, Fearless Cabins Effects. Twin Towers Kingdom, Fiery Ridge. As a level 90 map in the Twin Towers Kingdom, the Fiery Ridge was popular with level 90+ players, who would come here to grind for levels. However, these players didn't do so just because it was suitable for players of their level. Instead, it was also because the Earthfire Pterodactyl, a level 96 world boss, would appear in the Fiery Ridge from time to time. Compared to other world bosses, the Earthfire Pterodactyl was much easier to raid. So long as players met the high requirement for fire resistance, even a 100-man team made up of Tier 3 players could take it down. Hence, while grinding for levels in the Fiery Ridge, the various large guilds' newcomers would also check whether the Earthfire Pterodactyl had respawned. If the world boss had respawned, they would notify their guilds immediately, and their respective guilds would send a team to raid it. Not only could the players contributing to the world boss's discovery earn a bunch of GCPs, but they might even get a piece of level 100 fine-gold equipment if they were lucky. More and more NPCs have been competing with us for monsters recently. Fortunately, this place is quite far from NPC cities, and there aren't any villages or towns nearby. Otherwise, we would lose even this leveling spot, a level 97, Tier 2 shield warrior said. As he looked at the corpses of a dozen level 95 chieftains and one level 96 lord before him, he couldn't help sighing ruefully. Ever since the major system update, the good days of grinding as many monsters as they wished were no more. Now, NPCs were frequently seen hunting monsters in groups in almost all leveling maps. Moreover, these NPCs would generally be 10 levels higher than the map they were grinding in. They also boasted enviable weapons and equipment, with even the lowest quality piece being at the dark gold rank. Many of these NPCs even wielded epic weapons. As a result, almost no player would dare mess around with these NPCs. Indeed, we are lucky. According to some of the Tier 3 big shots in the guild, level 100 neutral maps are infested with level 130+ Tier 3 NPCs. There are more NPCs than monsters in some places. This forced the others in the guild to travel to farther locations. Now, their travel time is twice as long as before, a level 91, Tier 2 oracle commented. However, this is also our chance. Now that the leveling speed of players under level 100 is much faster than of players above level 100, if we catch up to the average level of the mainstream players and get promoted to Tier 3, we'll be set for life, a level 95, Tier 2 ranger said excitedly. Although God's Domain had been popular since its early stages, it wasn't as popular as it was now. At present, almost nobody in the real world did not know of God's Domain's existence. Meanwhile, the competition in God's Domain was intensifying by the day. Now, reaching level 100 and entering level 100 neutral maps was akin to going from a normal mode dungeon to a hell mode dungeon. The difficulty of leveling up increased drastically. Although this was bad news for mainstream players, it was undoubtedly good news for newcomers like themselves. As they had joined God's Domain much later than mainstream players, they had missed out on plenty of opportunities during the game's early stages. Now was the perfect opportunity for them to catch up. At present, the various guilds were frantically recruiting Tier 3 experts, with some guilds even promising a considerable monthly income. Some students that played God's Domain were currently earning more money than society's white-collar elites. This situation drew more and more working-class members and elderly people into joining God's Domain to earn extra income to subsidize their living expenditures. As the members of this six-man party were conversing among themselves, a sudden shockwave swept over them. Boom! The intense shockwave made the surrounding trees sway and shake. Even the earth shuddered slightly. What's going on? The level 97 Guardian Knight looked toward the shockwave's source in astonishment. However, before anyone could react to the situation, a high-pitched noise forced the 6 players to shield their ears. "This is definitely the Earthfire pterodactyl's screech," the young ranger said, his eyes glowing. So long as they reported this piece of news back to the guild, they would make a great contribution. "The Earthfire dragon should be in that location," the Guardian Knight said, pointing toward a valley in the west. "Quick! This thing won't wait for anyone." After briefly exchanging looks, the 6 players dashed toward the valley. Although they didn't know who angered the Earthfire pterodactyl, all they needed to do now was locate the world boss and wait for the guild to send a Tier 3 team to raid it. As for the possibility of other guilds discovering the Earthfire pterodactyl first, that did not matter. After all, the level 96 world boss wasn't such a pushover that Tier 2 players could take it down, especially after monsters in God's Domain gained a semblance of sentience. Now, smarter monsters would even flee for their lives when the situation looked bad for them. The process of chasing these monsters down would be incredibly troublesome and time-consuming. This would give their guild's Tier 3 team more than enough time to arrive. The Earthfire pterodactyl's screech attracted player teams to its location in the dozens. All of these teams reported the world boss's appearance to their respective guilds, and they were all adamant in securing the Earthfire pterodactyl's kill. After all, as a world boss, the Earthfire pterodactyl's loot was extraordinarily good. It would drop not only inferior legendary materials but even epic weapons and equipment that could be used up to level 120. If one were lucky, one could even get fragmented legendary items. Less than a minute after these dozens of teams began running, they arrived before the valley where the pterodactyl was. However, when these teams saw the Earthfire pterodactyl, they gasped involuntarily. The world boss before them right now was completely different from the Earthfire pterodactyls they had seen before. Why is this Earthfire pterodactyl so big? Why does it have 9 HP bars? A 50-meter-tall pterodactyl was hovering inside the valley. The pterodactyl's body burned with ethereal flames, and its flapping wings generated powerful gales that shredded the surrounding terrain. Just its roar was enough to send players stumbling backward. It had transformed the environment into a scorching field that could burn players with fire resistance below 400 points to a crisp instantly. Earthfire pterodactyl, world boss, mythic, realm lord, level 99 HP 3,300,000,000. The players that arrived before the valley fell into fear and despair when they saw the Earthfire pterodactyl's massive frame. After all, the world boss had flattened the terrain with just a flap of its wings. At this moment, they would most likely turn into ashes just by approaching the Earthfire pterodactyl, let alone fighting it. In fact, they even doubted that the Tier 3 players of their respective guilds could go up against this behemoth before them. Wait. It's injured, a level 97, Tier 2 Ranger exclaimed after carefully inspecting the Earthfire pterodactyl. At this Tier 2 Ranger's shout, everyone noticed the many bone-deep wounds on the world boss's body. They realized that the world boss had less than half of its HP remaining. While everyone was shocked by the Earthfire pterodactyl's injuries, a figure suddenly descended toward the world boss from the sky. Not only did this figure send a sword light cutting at the Earthfire pterodactyl's wing, but the sword light even cleaved the ground, opening a 150-yard-long fissure. Immediately afterward, a mind-blowing number appeared above the world boss's head. -5,157,624. Over 5 million damage in one attack. Is he an NPC? No. Although we can't see his information, that person has a player icon above his head. He should be a player. How is this possible? How can a player be so strong? Is he trying to solo the Earthfire pterodactyl? The players present couldn't help gaping when they saw the results of the slash, their minds refusing to believe their eyes. However, before anyone present could snap out of their daze, the figure that attacked the Earthfire pterodactyl executed another slash with his sword. Immediately, a phantom greatsword manifested in the air and sliced down on the world boss's wing. Slash. The next moment, the Earthfire pterodactyl let loose a heaven-shaking shriek as one of its 30-meter-long wings fell to the ground. Golden blood then poured out of the world boss's wound, splashing all over the ground and creating a sea of flames. -31,544,734. The next moment, the Earthfire pterodactyl's HP fell by a visible chunk. Is he even human? He dealt over 30 million damage in one attack. He can't be human. Monster. That person must be a humanoid monster. Everyone present fell into a daze once more when they saw the damage from the unknown person's second attack. Some players even pinched their own faces, thinking that everything in front of them was just an illusion. However, the unknown assailant in the air was not at all surprised at the power of his attack. Sure enough, it's easier to manipulate mana. The burden of using light shadow is even much less. As expected of the fearless cabin. It's no wonder all those superpowers had so many more Tier 4 experts than first and second-rate guilds. Shi Feng sighed ruefully as he looked at the dense mana condensed around the abyssal blade. Although the fearless cabin did not improve his basic attributes, it still increased his overall combat power by at least 20%. The refinement in his control over combat techniques and mana techniques was especially notable. With his ability to use 100% of his mental strength, the power of these techniques had risen to a whole new level. More and more people are gathering. It's about time I finished it and left this place. After glancing at the Earthfire pterodactyl, which could no longer fly, Shi Feng immediately flew toward the world boss. Upon seeing him, the Earthfire pterodactyl let loose an angry roar and used its strongest move, the Tier 4 skill Earthfire Rupture. The next moment, flaming rocks up to 40 meters in diameter went smashing toward Shi Feng one after another. Even space itself shattered from the power within the flaming rocks. A meaningless resistance. Shi Feng pointed the abyssal blade at the oncoming flaming rocks. Tier 4 legacy skill, Blade Domain. Immediately, magic swords appeared around Shi Feng one after another. The swords then turned into streaks of light as they shot at the oncoming rocks. Boom. 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 Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. A shattered space formed above the battlefield. Before the spectating players could return to their senses, the magic swords had already shattered all of the flaming rocks the Earthfire pterodactyl summoned. Afterward, more magic swords formed around Shi Feng and subsequently shot at the world boss itself. -21,346,544 to 43,671,216. Damages exceeding 20 million appeared above the Earthfire pterodactyl's head one after another. No matter how much the world boss struggled even to the point of turning the surroundings into a sea of flames and void, its HP still decreased rapidly. Less than a minute later, the Earthfire pterodactyl let out one last agonized screech before collapsing into the sea of flames. From start to end, the world boss had not inflicted a single point of damage on Shi Feng at all. Chapter 2747, Crazed Eastern Continent. Chapter 2747, Crazed Eastern Continent. The Earthfire pterodactyl collapsed to the ground and shook the entire valley. However, despite witnessing the world boss's death, none of the spectating players charged forward to try to steal some of its loot. Silence enveloped the valley, a silence so overwhelming that it felt as if time had stopped inside the valley. When the various spectating players looked at the cloaked man wielding the runic black sword, fear and awe filled their eyes. It was as if they had just seen a god. Is he really a player? Such thoughts surfaced in the spectating players' minds as they looked at Shifeng hovering in midair. Shifeng had killed a level 99 mythic ranked world boss, just like that. Rather than a world boss, it looked more like some elite monster he found by the roadside, one that was utterly incapable of putting up any resistance. Who is he? There's no way a player can be this strong. That's a level 99 world boss we're talking about. Even a 100-man, Tier 3 team wouldn't necessarily be able to take it down. He must be an NPC in disguise. When looking at Shifeng's hovering figure, some players even hugged their heads and began laughing maniacally. They simply couldn't bring themselves to believe that such a massive gap between players could exist. However, Shifeng paid the shocked players and the maddened players no heed whatsoever. Instead, he arrived beside the Earthfire pterodactyl's corpse and began collecting its loot. God's domain was not reality. In the game world, just the gradual accumulation of basic attributes was sufficient to turn a player into a monster in the eyes of other players, what more the qualitative improvements brought about by tier upgrades. Moreover, there was a two-tier gap between Shifeng and the spectating players. In the eyes of Tier 2 players, Tier 4 players would be no different from gods. In fact, a Tier 4 player could kill scads of Tier 2 players with just a flick of their hand. The world boss Shifeng fought hadn't even reached level 100. In God's domain, monsters that hadn't reached level 100 couldn't be considered strong at all. Otherwise, the various major powers wouldn't be contesting so frantically for world bosses below level 100. It was precisely because these powers were incapable of defeating level 100 plus world bosses that they had to settle for pre-level 100 world bosses. Oh! A good piece of epic equipment dropped. Shifeng was slightly surprised as he looked at the sacred mage robe in his hands. Whistling light robe, cloth armor, epic rank, level 40, level 110 equipment requirement, intelligence 1500, vitality 1300, defense plus 340, level 40, strength plus 20, agility plus 24, intelligence plus 63, vitality plus 31, endurance plus 25, ignore levels plus 4, defensive skills plus 2 levels, cast range increased by 20%, intelligence and vitality increased by 10%. Additional passive skill 1, spiritual light. When the user's concentration falls below 50%, mana consumption is reduced by 30%, and casting speed increases by 30%. Additional passive skill 2, mana armor, automatically absorbs mana in a 100-yard radius to protect the user. Improves mana perception by 20%, increases magic resistance by 20%, and improves spell effects by 20%. 2-piece set effect. The upper level limit of all whistling light set pieces is increased to level 150. 4-piece set effect. All attributes are increased by 20%, and the effect of all spells is increased by 20%. 6-piece set effect. Gain the protection of light, improving physique by 30% and mana affinity by 20%. Gain the mana heart skill. When activated, forcibly elevates the strength of the user's mana by 1 tier for 1 minute. The skill has a 1-hour cooldown. The whistling light set had 7 pieces in total. It could be considered top tier even among epic set equipment. So long as a magical class player had 2 set pieces, they could use the set until they reached level 150. If Tier 4 Great Wizard managed to gather 6 pieces of the set, they would become a devastating existence. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Whistling Light set was one of the best set equipment for magical class players under Tier 5. However, only world bosses under level 150 dropped the Whistling Light set. The drop rate was also random. Hence, collecting a full set would be incredibly difficult. I can get Fire and the others to raid world bosses under level 120 more frequently. If we can gather a full set, be it Violet or Aqua who uses the set, neither will have to replace their equipment before reaching Tier 5. When Shifeng looked at the Whistling Light robe, he felt the need to collect the full Whistling Light set. If Violet Cloud or Aqua Rose equipped the full set before reaching Tier 5, they would become nigh invincible against Tier 4 opponents. Shifeng stored the Whistling Light robe and collected the remaining items the Earthfire pterodactyl dropped. Besides the Whistling Light robe, the level 99 world boss had dropped a dozen pieces of level 100 dark gold and fine gold weapons and equipment, a large amount of materials, magic crystals, potion recipes, etc. After putting all these items in his bag space, he promptly flew away from the valley. When the various Major Powers members saw Shifeng leaving, they sighed in relief. With that long sword and that frightening destructive power, he should be Black Flame, right? I tagged along with my guild executives to watch the reserve seat competition. That guy indeed looks a lot like Black Flame. They must be the same person. Black Flame is also the only known Tier 4 player in the game right now, and only Tier 4 classes could possibly display such scary strength. So, he's the Sword King? Isn't he a little too amazing? After Shifeng's figure was out of sight, some of the spectating players guessed Shifeng's identity. And in no time at all, everyone present began talking about him, their discussions becoming especially heated when the topic touched on Tier 4 classes. When the players present recalled the scene of Shifeng chopping off one of the Earthfire pterodactyl's wings, they couldn't help yearning to reach Tier 4. Previously, no one had a clear concept of Tier 4 classes. Even the players who had spectated the reserve seat competition at the War God's Temple did not find Tier 4 classes to be particularly amazing. At most, Tier 4 existences were invincible among Tier 3 players. But now, everyone was truly shocked by the strength of Tier 4 classes. A Tier 4 player had actually single-handedly defeated a mythic ranked world boss. How could anyone not yearn for such strength? Very quickly, news of Shifeng slaying the Earthfire pterodactyl spread across God's domain. After the various Major Powers executives watched Shifeng's battle video, they gained a newfound appreciation of Tier 4 classes. Simultaneously, their eyes burned with a passionate flame as the ambition they had lost due to the NPC's upsurgence returned. Tier 4. Mobilize all available manpower in the guild to find out how Zero Wing managed to complete the Tier 4 promotion quest. The era of Tier 3 classes is over. From now on, we have only one goal, and that is Tier 4. So long as we can secure ourselves a Tier 4 player, we'll be unstoppable. For a time, the various powers searched frantically for information relating to Tier 4 legacies, going as far as trying to plant spies in Zero Wing. Some superpowers even directly contacted Zero Wing's executives and offered to pay astronomical prices for all information regarding Tier 4 classes. Simultaneously, a wave of discussions spread through the various kingdoms and empires' forums. Just the video of Shifeng's fight against the Earthfire pterodactyl alone had garnered over 1 billion views already. Everyone on the forums discussed what exactly Tier 4 classes were, what the upper limit of these classes' combat power was, and whether a Tier 4 player could solo a mythic monster of the same level. The topic of Tier 4 swept across the entire eastern continent, setting off a craze. Meanwhile, after Shifeng left the Fiery Ridge, message prompts and call requests immediately inundated his communication interface. At a glance, he noticed that the message prompts had already reached the upper limit of 9,999. He had also received several hundred call requests. Moreover, this was with his interface set to automatically reject communication from non-friends. Without this block in place, his communication interface would probably have blown up. Guild leader, you really caused a huge mess this time. When Yulan finally managed to get through to Shifeng, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The entire world is now looking for Tier 4 legacy lands. Zero Wing has also become the target of all the powers. Everyone is trying to get information about Tier 4 legacy lands from us. Currently, all of Zero Wing's executives were being harassed by the various powers. Yulan herself had been contacted by over 20 superpowers, with every one of them offering to purchase information on the Tier 4 promotion quest at astronomical prices. If Zero Wing did not respond to these requests, it would be akin to offending all of these superpowers. At that time, Zero Wing would really be in danger of extermination. An accident. It really was an accident, Shifeng said apologetically. I didn't expect something like this to happen, either. He had only thought to try out the fearless cabin's effects. He had not anticipated such a development. Not to mention, from a certain perspective, the fearless cabin's effects were truly astonishing. What should we do now? Yulan asked, frowning. If we refuse all of them, we'll make an enemy out of every superpower on the eastern continent. After giving the matter some thought, Shifeng said, how about this? Announce that Zero Wing is willing to sell information on the Tier 4 promotion quest. However, the price of the information is 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystals. 5,000 units? Guild leader, isn't this a little? Yulan gaped at Shifeng's price. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The price tag of 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal already went beyond gouging. Shifeng was basically asking the various superpowers to hand over their lives. A superpower could be considered wealthy if they even had 3,000 or 4,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal on hand. With many superpowers having participated in the recent reserve seat competition, they definitely would have much fewer 7 luminaries crystals available than before. Hence, the price of 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal would be beyond most superpowers right now. Just notify them, Shifeng instructed, having no intention whatsoever of compromising. I've already set my price. As for their willingness to purchase the information, that is none of our business. All right, but I won't care for what happens next, Yulan said as she nodded her head helplessly. Afterward, she publicized Shifeng's price to the various powers. Chapter 2748. Better to die on your feet than live on your knees. Chapter 2748. Better to die on your feet than live on your knees. Neutral map, Crimson Rainforest. In a forest where crimson rain poured, a team of 1,000 Tier 3 players was frantically fighting a horde of over 10,000 level 120+ bloodthirsty beasts. Even the weakest of these bloodthirsty beasts were level 121 chieftains, while the strongest were level 126 grand lords. On the players' side, shield-wielding guardian knights and shield warriors stood in the forefront. On the bloodthirsty beast side, iron-armored beasts, whose strength lay in their defense, spearheaded a charge against the guardian knights and shield warriors. After the first group of iron-armored beasts completed their ramming attack, another group would immediately follow in an endless loop. Meanwhile, the Herculean beasts standing at the rear of the bloodthirsty beasts formation would uproot the crimson trees around them and hurl the trees at the players, the trees dyeing the sky an extra tint of red. The bloodthirsty beasts' terrifying formation was one that even Tier 3 players accustomed to group battles would be afraid of. Ordinary Tier 3 players wouldn't risk a frontal confrontation with these monsters. However, despite facing such a fierce and ruthless assault, the 1,000-man team fighting the bloodthirsty beasts remained unfazed. We've attracted enough. Magical team, attack! A valiant, long-haired woman standing near the front line of the team commanded as more and more bloodthirsty beasts gathered around the team. Immediately, the several hundred magical class players standing at the center of the team's formation began chanting complex incantations simultaneously. Every verse the players chanted drew more of the ambient mana, making it stronger and more violent. 4 seconds later, the ground began to shake violently. Huge cracks then appeared 500 yards away from these magical class players, right under the bloodthirsty beasts, causing the monster's formation to collapse instantly. Swordsmen and berserkers, open a path. Rangers and assassins, prioritize killing the bloodthirsty chieftains commanding the monsters. Upon seeing the bloodthirsty beasts' formations collapse, the long-haired woman had the team disperse into multiple units and prioritize killing the bloodthirsty beasts that led the horde. As for the long-haired woman, like a demon in the night, she instantly appeared behind a 7-meter-tall, level 126 Grand Lord. The next moment, she brandished the daggers she wielded, the weapons distorting space and repeatedly stabbing the Grand Lord's back over a dozen times. Every stab inflicted over -500,000 damage, the series of attacks instantly plundering nearly 8 million HP from the bloodthirsty chieftain. After the successful attack, darkness enveloped the long-haired woman's body. This cloak of darkness then expanded to envelop the Grand Lord entirely before rapidly recondensing in front of it. PSH. 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 Blood suddenly spurted from the bloodthirsty chieftain's 4 limbs. Not only did its mobility get reduced significantly, but its HP was even falling at a rate of 700,000 per second. The 3-level 124 Great Lord ranked bloodthirsty guards nearby faced similar fates. Blood gushed out of their limbs, and their mobility plummeted as if their bodies had become frozen. After around 15 more minutes of battle, this bloodthirsty chieftain and 3 bloodthirsty guards collapsed to the ground, the life in their eyes vanishing. Meanwhile, the other bloodthirsty beasts on the battlefield were also mostly dead. The items they dropped were strewn all over the place. However, none of the combatants chose to pick up these items. Instead, they continued advancing deeper into the Crimson Rainforest in an orderly manner, leaving behind a few parties of assassins to clean up the battlefield. At this time, a level 119 female Guardian Knight approached the long-haired woman in command of the team. She then said quietly, "Vice Guild Leader, news just came from Zero Wing. They say they're willing to sell information on the Tier 4 promotion quest." "Oh, he's actually willing to sell the information?" Cold Shadow was surprised to hear Whitefeather's words. In her opinion, the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest was Shifeng's greatest trump card in God's domain. It was something he definitely would not sell to other people. "He is willing to sell, but the price he demands is incredibly high," Whitefeather said with an ugly expression, emphasizing the words incredibly high. "Incredibly high?" Chuckling, Cold Shadow asked, "How much does he want?" 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal, Whitefeather replied in a low tone. "Shifeng obviously has no intention of selling that information. He's clearly just messing with us. 5,000 units? He really knows how to set a price," Cold Shadow said, smiling. "I'm guessing that those superpowers are fuming at Zero Wing at this point. They'll most likely disregard all costs and take action against Zero Wing. That's for sure. There's no way those superpowers can afford to pay 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal. If they want that information, their only option is to work together and declare war on Zero Wing," Whitefeather said, nodding. Shifeng was basically treating the various superpowers as fools by demanding such an exorbitant price. The various superpowers would be insane to go along with him. "Fine. Go and notify Zero Wing that I'm buying it," Cold Shadow said, smiling. "You're buying it?" Whitefeather's eyes widened immediately as she stared at Cold Shadow in disbelief. "Vice Guild Leader, that's 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystals we're talking about." While mythology could indeed disperse 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystals, it would still suffer from the loss. Not to mention, the guild's higher-ups kept reiterating that the 7 luminaries crystal was the guild's most important resource and must not be used randomly. "That's right. I'm buying it." Cold Shadow nodded. She then asked Whitefeather, "Do you think Zero Wing's people are fools?" After giving the matter some thought, Whitefeather answered, "They shouldn't be, but they're still too arrogant." Yes. Zero Wing was arrogant to the bones. The guild was not taking the various superpowers seriously at all. That's enough, then. Since they're not fools, they should be aware of the consequences of pulling such a stunt. In a slightly resentful tone, Cold Shadow added, "Although I detest Zero Wing, the fact that Zero Wing has survived until now shows that the guild isn't as simple as we think it is. Even Sir Odin gave up on killing Shifeng. You can tell how extraordinary he is. But that's 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal." Whitefeather couldn't help repeating herself. "The guild definitely won't agree to this transaction. I already said that I would buy it, not the guild," Cold Shadow said, shaking her head. "So, we don't need to worry about what the guild will say about this. Vice Guild Leader, if you buy it, you'll be giving away all the 7 luminaries crystals you've saved to Zero Wing." Whitefeather was even more shocked at Cold Shadow's words. Hurriedly, she warned, "In this case, I'm afraid you will have to postpone becoming the first Vice Guild Leader indefinitely. 7 luminaries crystals had always been very important to mythology. Hence, Cold Shadow had constantly been stockpiling the crystals since early on so that she could contribute them to the guild during a critical moment and have the guild recognize her value. However, if Cold Shadow used up her entire stockpile, gaining recognition would be difficult. While 7 Luminaries crystals are indeed important, getting promoted to Tier 4 is much more important right now. Gazing at the endless crimson forest ahead of her, Cold Shadow said seriously, the places Tier 3 players can visit are too limited. Only after reaching Tier 4 can players venture into more valuable locations. Hence, our first priority now is to reach Tier 4. Then, we can easily earn back those crystals. In reality, Cold Shadow felt extremely upset by Shifeng's actions. She wanted nothing more than to give him a few hundred deaths right now. However, in the current God's domain, only Shifeng knew how to get promoted to Tier 4 quickly and the exact details of the Tier 4 promotion quest. Getting her hands on this information would be equivalent to securing herself an absolute advantage. After all, she had reached level 120 already with Zero Wings information. She could undoubtedly reach Tier 4 ahead of everyone else in the guild. She could be the first to venture into places that players currently considered taboo and continuously strengthen herself. At that time, even becoming the strongest expert of mythology's younger generation wouldn't be impossible. I understand. I'll make the necessary preparations now. Seeing the determination in Cold Shadow's eyes, White Feather understood that there was nothing she could say to dissuade Cold Shadow from her decision. At present, the various superpowers should already have players at level 120. If Cold Shadow could reach Tier 4 ahead of everyone else, her authority in the guild would definitely increase. Of course, Cold Shadow was also making a gamble. She was betting that Zero Wing would not lose to the various superpowers and that Zero Wing could survive the upcoming battle. In that case, she would obtain an absolute advantage. However, White Feather wasn't aware of how crazy Cold Shadow actually was. In Cold Shadow's opinion, it did not matter whether Zero Wing could survive or not. She would be satisfied so long as she could get her hands on this opportunity. Orc Empire, Silverwing City, damn it. Zero Wing is clearly toying with us. That's right. We are kindly offering to purchase his information on the Tier 4 promotion quest, yet he's repaying us like this. Let's just join hands. So long as we join forces to hinder Zero Wing's operations, Zero Wing will have to yield to us. Yes. With our combined strength, there's no chance whatsoever that Zero Wing will survive. Many of the superpowers operating in Silverwing City secretly came to an agreement to suppress Zero Wing. They began targeting Zero Wing's members to force Zero Wing into obediently surrendering the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest. Meanwhile, inside Zero Wing's residence, Shifeng received a call from Yuan Taishin. Guild leader Black Flame, you've gone too far this time. Even if you want to sell the Tier 4 promotion quest's information, you could have just asked for 1,000 units. I believe most superpowers would be willing to pay such a price. You will also get to make a big profit. Why must you have Zero Wing make an enemy out of the superpowers? Yuan Taishin said in exasperation. For the various superpowers, paying 5,000 units of 7 Luminaries crystals was akin to forking over their lives. However, a price of only 1,000 units would still be palatable to many superpowers. At that time, not only would Zero Wing earn a bunch of 7 Luminaries crystals, but the various superpowers also wouldn't seek trouble with Zero Wing. It would be the best of both worlds. Yet, Shifeng had chosen to take the worst possible action. Make enemies. Chuckling, Shifeng said, I never intended to become enemies with them. Also, you're wrong about one thing, Elder Yuan. They are the ones forcing Zero Wing to sell information on the Tier 4 promotion quest. We aren't selling it because we want to. I've given them my price. If they can't afford it, how is it my fault? What you say is indeed correct. Yuan Taishin naturally understood Shifeng's take on this situation. However, Zero Wing's circumstances were inferior to the various superpowers. Meanwhile, having wealth without the strength necessary to protect it became a sin. But those superpowers won't share your way of thinking. They will definitely cooperate in secret to target Zero Wing's members. At that time, Zero Wing's members will shed a river of blood. The various superpowers might be incapable of breaking through the defenses of Zero Wing's guild cities right now, but having people target Zero Wing's members out in the fields would be a piece of cake. There was no way Zero Wing's members could avoid going out to grind for levels. There was also no way Zero Wing could have peak experts escort and protect every guild member. Once the various superpowers took action, Zero Wing would eventually lose members in large numbers. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. As for Zero Wing retaliating against the various superpowers, the superpowers scheme wasn't going to be something as straightforward as a frontal confrontation. Instead, they would be taking covert action against Zero Wing. In that case, how could Zero Wing possibly determine which superpower was actually taking action against it? Moreover, even if Zero Wing managed to identify the superpowers responsible for the attacks, with there being so many superpowers, could Shifeng possibly win against them all? He would exhaust himself to death just by running about the numerous maps. However, in response to Yuan Tiexin's words, Shifeng said calmly, "We'll shed rivers of blood, then." Chapter 2749, Tier 4 Promotion Quests Secret. Chapter 2749, Tier 4 Promotion Quests Secret. This is madness. He has truly gone mad. After hanging up the call, Yuan Taishan fell speechless. He never thought that Shifeng would be so stubborn. Shifeng clearly could have settled things easily so long as he made some concessions, yet he had adamantly refused to do so. Uncle Yuan, many of those superpowers have already begun joining forces. When they find out that Zero Wing is unwilling to concede at all, they will definitely take action, Purple Jade said as she read the report her subordinate just sent her. Zero Wing's present situation could be said to be very bad. According to the report, over 15 superpowers had already agreed to work together to deal with Zero Wing. Forget it. He can do whatever he wants. The clash between the various superpowers and Zero Wing will most likely drag on for some time. After all, Zero Wing's 3 cities are too difficult to take down. We'll see who can last until the end, Yuan Taishan said, shaking his head. A glimmer of light then flashed in his eyes as he continued, "Also, we still have more important matters to deal with. If we succeed in this upcoming operation, the secret pavilion can thoroughly surpass the various superpowers. At that time, even the 5 great super guilds will have to fear us." "Emit him. I'll make the necessary preparations," Purple Jade said, her eyes similarly filled with joy and excitement. Tier 4 had never been the end of God's domain. Instead, it was only the beginning. The secret pavilion had been waiting for this moment for far too long. Now, it could finally fulfill its long-cherished wish. Dark Knight Empire, Starlink's residence. Ha ha ha. Good. That's what Zero Wing should do. That's right. Go and thoroughly offend those superpowers. Lu Xingluo laughed happily when he received news of Zero Wing's actions. Previously, he had had a huge headache over how to deal with Zero Wing. However, Zero Wing had actually taken the initiative to offend even more superpowers. With this, he would have a much easier time destroying Zero Wing. As Lu Xingluo was celebrating in joy, a robust man covered in a black cloak and runic bandages suddenly entered his office. "Sorry for the long wait, young Master Lu," the robust, middle-aged man said as he arrived before Lu Xingluo. He then continued in a low tone, "We have resolved most of the troubles there already. We are only waiting for your side now." "Good. You came at the perfect time. This time, even the heavens want Zero Wing dead." Lu Xingluo grew even more excited when he looked at the mysterious middle-aged man. "Leave it to me. I'll definitely persuade those old fellows to give you their full help." "Thank you, young Master Lu," the robust man said. "So long as this operation succeeds, the lord of our household will also assist young Master Lu in quelling all your enemies." "I believe you." "After all, no one has a better understanding of God's domain than you guys right now," Lu Xingluo said, smiling. Be it this robust man or the person backing him, Lu Xingluo placed immense trust in them. In the eyes of these people, the various superpowers were negligible. Given enough time, these people could even take on the 5 great superguilds simultaneously. This was because the 5 great superguilds did not understand God's domain at all. What they knew now was only the tip of the iceberg. Orc Empire, Zero Wing's residence, guild leader. Aside from one person, no superpower has stepped forward to purchase the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest, Yulan said. As she watched Shifeng casually sort the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest, her head throbbed. Judging by the other superpowers' actions, they don't plan to buy it. Since these superpowers had no intention of purchasing the information, their next action was obvious: they would fight for it. They would fight a war of attrition that would last days and weeks. Meanwhile, Zero Wing's opponent this time would no longer be just one or two superpowers. Instead, almost all of the Eastern Continent's superpowers would become Zero Wing's enemies. There's actually a fool trying to buy it. Shifeng was surprised when he heard Yolan's words. Truthfully, he had never once thought that any of the superpowers would purchase his information at the price he quoted. He was sorting through the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest only because his own guild needed it. After all, quite a few Zero Wing members already possessed the strength and level required to challenge their Tier 4 promotion quest. All they lacked was the knowledge of how to search for their respective Tier 4 legacy lands and the process of obtaining their Tier 4 legacies. Yulan was momentarily rendered speechless by Shifeng's response. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "You know this person, guild leader." "I know them. Is it the secret pavilion's Yuan Taishin?" After giving the matter some thought, Shifeng felt that among his acquaintances, only the secret pavilion's Yuan Taishin could afford to purchase his information. As for Frost Heaven, the guild had just participated in the reserve seat competition. It definitely did not possess 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystals at this point. "No, it's mythology's cold shadow," Yulan said, shaking her head. She then asked hesitantly, "Guild leader, are you really planning to sell it to her?" Due to the reserve seat competition, Zero Wing was now on mythology's radar. If they sold information on the Tier 4 promotion quest to mythology now, it would be incredibly disadvantageous for Zero Wing. "Of course. Why wouldn't I sell it?" Shifeng answered without hesitation. "We already announced our intention to do business. Since we said we would sell the information, we naturally can't go back on our word. Otherwise, the various superpowers will have even more reason to target us." He was in urgent need of 7 luminaries crystals right now. Although he had some methods for obtaining a large amount of the crystal, these methods required a lot of time to execute. He wasn't certain he could collect enough 7 luminaries crystals to surpass the top 3 rankers of the upper zone's contribution competition within the next 2 months. At best, he could secure one of the top 20 positions. Gaining 5,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal now would save him a lot of trouble. However, White Feather has stated that we cannot mention this transaction to anybody else, Yulan said. They want this to be a secret between only our two sides. They also want to sign a contract to this effect. That won't be a problem. Even if they didn't suggest it, we would have asked them to sign a confidentiality agreement that restricts them from sharing the information with outsiders, Shifeng said. Information on the Tier 4 promotion quest was like a hot potato right now. Anyone holding it would be struck with misfortune. Even a super guild like Mythology wouldn't be safe. Hence, it was very normal for Mythology not to want outsiders to find out about this transaction. "Make a copy of everything here and give it to them," Shifeng instructed as he handed the compiled information on the Tier 4 promotion quest to Yulan. "Everything?" Yulan was surprised to hear Shifeng's words. The players of God's Domain were still ignorant of the Tier 4 promotion quest. In fact, even Zero Wing's members knew nothing about it. If they sold all this information to Mythology, that would be akin to throwing away all their advantages. Everything. Shifeng nodded. Since the other party is willing to pay an astronomical price for this information, I naturally won't be stingy. Not to mention, the secret to the Tier 4 promotion quest isn't a secret at all. Once the various superpowers learn about it, we can let them know how ridiculous their fantasies about the secret are. Information on the Tier 4 promotion quest was indeed incredibly precious. At the very least, that was the case now. However, once one of the various superpowers experts successfully reached Tier 4, the information he was selling would be worthless. Yes. It didn't matter how much information he provided about the Tier 4 promotion quest. The real value of his information was simply in helping to produce the first Tier 4 player as quickly as possible. Moreover, The so-called information on the Tier 4 promotion quest couldn't actually be considered a secret. This was because locating the Tier 4 Legacy Land and resolving the problems one would encounter in the Legacy Land were both problems that players needed to resolve on their own. The only information he could provide was the method to search for Tier 4 Legacy Lands. Whether one could locate their Legacy Land with this information would still depend on their luck. After all, Tier 4 Legacy Lands did not have a fixed position. They would appear at random in God's domain. The Tier 4 Legacy Lands were all located in spaces outside of the main continents. What players needed to do to visit these Legacy Lands was find the randomly occurring spatial nodes that could teleport them to these Legacy Lands. In addition to the information on how to search for Tier 4 Legacy Lands, the only other valuable information he provided was the process of learning one's legacy during the promotion quest. With this information, one wouldn't go into one's promotion quest blind. Even so, the amount of help this information could provide was limited because the process of learning one's legacy depended entirely on the individual. Outsiders couldn't help in this matter. Meanwhile, the method he provided to search for Tier 4 Legacy Lands was to venture into incredibly dangerous neutral maps of at least level 130. The more dangerous a neutral map was, the more likely one could find a Tier 4 Legacy Land. Only by searching in these maps would one have a greater chance of locating a Tier 4 Legacy Land. Aside from this method, there was no other way. If he excluded these bits of information, then the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest he sold would be nothing but a scam. After reading the information, Yulan was stunned. This is the Tier 4 promotion quest secret. Yulan suddenly felt the urge to laugh. The various superpowers were currently desperately trying to obtain information on the Tier 4 promotion quest. However, if they were to learn the exact details of the information, they would most likely lose their minds. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. After all, in the information Chiffon compiled, there was nothing whatsoever that could increase one's success rate with the Tier 4 promotion quest. The funny thing was, the various superpowers thought that they could have an easier time producing Tier 4 players so long as they had this information. In fact, they were so staunch in their belief that they were waging war against Zero Wing. In reality, by targeting Zero Wing, all the superpowers were doing was wasting precious time when they could be improving themselves. That's right. This is the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest, Chiffon said, chuckling. I can even announce to those superpowers, right now, that they have already been eliminated from the struggle for hegemony in God's domain. As Chiffon and Yulan were conversing, Liang Jing suddenly entered the room. Guild Leader, Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor are ready. They can take action as soon as you give the command, Liang Jing said excitedly. Good. Have them start moving. Chiffon said, nodding. It's about time we let these so-called superpowers know how laughable their actions are. Chapter 2750, Daunting Silverwing City. Chapter 2750, Daunting Silverwing City. Silverwing City, Business Plaza. Due to the news of the various superpowers targeting Zero Wing, the number of players occupying the city's business plaza declined. Many players were afraid of becoming collateral damage. The independent players that were initially planning on joining Zero Wing also began hesitating. And here I thought I could join Zero Wing and spread my wings after coming to Silverwing City. From the situation now, it seems I've made the wrong call. I heard that many Zero Wing members withdrew from the guild. The ones that chose to stay don't even dare set foot outside Zero Wing's guild cities. If I were to say which guild is the strongest right now, it would have to be Saint's Hand. Why don't we join Saint's Hand? If we do, we won't have to worry about those faux saint monsters. The players inside one of the city's bars inevitably discussed whether they should head to other places to develop themselves. At this point, they no longer held any hope for Zero Wing. Meanwhile, in a corner of the bar, several cloaked men listened quietly to these conversations. The younger men among them revealed sneers on their faces when they heard about Zero Wing's present situation. And here I thought the guild she joined was some powerful existence, a level 122, Tier 3 assassin youth, who radiated an aura that made even Tier 3 experts quail, said with displeasure. It seems we were being overly concerned. To think we even went out of our way to come to this backwater. Zero Wing isn't even comparable to one of the main continent's super guilds. I really don't know how it got so lucky to actually get her to join. Now, she's not even willing to join us. Old Six, don't say that. Although this place isn't much, I heard that those super guilds and super first-rate guilds have quite a few capable experts. We can use this opportunity to investigate these people and understand the standards of the experts here, a cool-headed, middle-aged man sitting at the head of the group said, chuckling. As for Zero Wing, we can just report the truth to the higher-ups once we return. At that time, she will definitely panic. I guess so. Smiling, the assassin youth said, if she's willing to join us, I wouldn't mind helping Zero Wing out a little. Just when the various superpowers and independent players thought that Silverwing City would become a ghost city, large groups of players suddenly appeared on the city's streets one after another. These players filled the main streets and alleyways of the city, easily numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Moreover, every one of these players was formidable. What's going on? Why are Crimson Emperors and Unyielding Souls members coming here? Are those two guilds planning to work together with Zero Wing to oppose the various superpowers? The players and powers residing in Silverwing City were momentarily dumbfounded, unable to understand what had gotten into the two super first-rate guilds for them to garrison so many of their members in Silverwing City. Moreover, this number was still increasing as time passed. In just half an hour, the two guilds had gathered over 3 million members in the city, livening up the previously desolate city significantly. Heart. Has your guild gone mad? You're actually betting all your chips on Zero Wing? Is Crimson Emperor trying to make an enemy out of us? In this situation, the various superpowers had to contact Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words, who were in charge of the operation this time. Although they knew that Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor could be considered Zero Wing's allies, Zero Wing was currently going up against almost all of the Eastern Continent superpowers. Standing with Zero Wing now was no different from suicide. Yet, to the various superpowers' astonishment, both Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor declared their intention to side with Zero Wing. Moreover, they even announced that they wouldn't sit still and do nothing should those superpowers take action against Silverwing City. However, Zero Wing's move was even more unexpected than Unyielding Souls and Crimson Emperors. Zero Wing actually ordered all members above level 100 to gather in Silverwing City. More than 2 million Zero Wing members appeared in Silverwing City. At present, not only was Silverwing City far livelier than before, but the number of Tier 3 experts gathered in the city had also exceeded 10,000. This was more than what any other guild city on the main continent had. With more than 10,000 Tier 3 experts garrisoning Silverwing City, let alone the various superpowers, even the 5 great superguilds would have to be wary of the city. It was no exaggeration to say that with this kind of power, Silverwing City could trample the various powers operating in the Orc Empire. If the superpowers wished to create any waves in Silverwing City, they would have to disregard cost and dispatch a large number of Tier 3 experts into the city's surroundings. Anything less would be futile. Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor must have gone crazy. They're actually willing to go to such an extent just to help Zero Wing. When Cold Shadow received news of Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor's actions, she, too, was surprised. She had anticipated that Zero Wing had a trump card prepared. Otherwise, it wouldn't have dared to provoke the various superpowers. However, never had she expected Zero Wing's trump card to be something like this. At this moment, let alone Cold Shadow, someone who was hostile to Zero Wing, even Frost Heaven's 7 Wonders was dumbfounded. He never imagined that Zero Wing could make 2 super first-rate guilds bet all their chips on it. With the combined force of the 3 guilds, even the superpowers wouldn't dare mess around. After all, those superpowers had dared to target Zero Wing before only because the guild lacked background, resources, and funding. With their advantage in numbers and funding, they could easily suppress Zero Wing and make the guild submit. However, now that Zero Wing had 2 superpowers backing it, numbers and funding were no longer its weaknesses. If the superpowers wished to persecute Zero Wing, they would have to pay at least 10 times the price they had to pay before. The various superpowers weren't the only ones confused by this situation. Even Zero Wing's internal members were at a loss. Damn! Our guild was actually so awesome. But why did the guild gather all of us in Silverwing City? Are we going to occupy the Orc capital city? The assembled Zero Wing members speculated exuberantly. After all, the strength currently gathered in Silverwing City was no laughing matter. A force of 10,000 plus Tier 3 experts was more than enough to flatten the Orc capital city's inner area. They might even be able to put up a fight in the core area. Guild leader, all our level 100 plus members have arrived. The two guilds are also ready to set off for Sky Spring City at any time, Liang Jing reported excitedly. She had maintained her calm while everyone else in the guild was panicking over Zero Wing's predicament. This was because she had found out about the secret Covenant Towers matter ahead of time and Zero Wing's settlement into Sky Spring City. So long as Zero Wing sealed off Sky Spring City, outsiders would have difficulty setting foot out of the city. Meanwhile, Zero Wing's members could travel freely to the secret Covenant Tower to grind for levels. They wouldn't need to worry about heading elsewhere to level up. At that time, it would become almost impossible for the superpowers to harm Zero Wing's guild members. Not to mention, when the various superpowers members grinded for levels out in the fields, the interference of those troublesome NPCs would greatly reduce their leveling speed. This, in turn, would further widen the gap in leveling speeds between the superpowers members and Zero Wing's members. All right. Open the teleportation hall now, Shifeng said, nodding. Although things had developed somewhat differently from his original plan, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. Afterward, all Zero Wing had to do was watch as the various superpowers struggled to cope with the increasing number of NPCs and NPC forces. Understood. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. With great excitement, Liang Jing instructed her subordinates to remove the walls and various camouflage buildings around the teleportation hall. The next moment, several 7- and 8-story tall buildings along the city's main street disappeared. Not only did the disappearance of these buildings create a spacious plaza, but there was even a massive 5-story tall building in the center of this plaza. When the players walking on Silverwing City's main street saw this building, they were immediately dumbfounded. The building sitting in the plaza was something very familiar to them. A teleportation hall? Chapter 2751, Number 1 City in the Future. Chapter 2751, Number 1 City in the Future. The teleportation hall was a 5-story building with the footprint of 3 sports stadiums. The massive edifice looked as if it were the heart of this area. Previously, the teleportation hall's teleportation array had been suppressed by a magic barrier. However, now that the restriction was lifted, the teleportation array instantly stirred the mana inside Silverwing City, exciting the mana to flow toward the building. This sudden change stunned the players on the main street. Why does Silverwing City have a teleportation hall? Crap. I never thought Zero Wing would actually play such a card. Amazing. Simply amazing. So, this is Zero Wing's true trump card? This won't do. I need to rent some shops in Silverwing City now. I must rent them no matter the cost. The many players on the streets who were originally planning to leave Silverwing City for greener pastures were now in a hurry. Some of the players who were quick to respond hastened to Silverwing City's City Lord's mansion immediately. Hurry up. BWB notify the commander right away. We can't let the commander rent a house in another guild city. We got tricked by Zero Wing. Meanwhile, the various adventurer teams members frantically contacted their respective commanders lest they ruin their future by being even a tad slower. As for the various large guilds members, their initial gleeful expressions were now replaced with gapes of disbelief. A teleportation hall. This was a building all players in God's domain were familiar with. Everyone knew just how valuable a guild city with a teleportation hall would be. Compared to high-ranking constructions or Tier 4 NPC guards, a teleportation hall was many times more valuable. After all, so long as a guild city possessed a teleportation hall, it would be connected with the countless NPC cities of God's domain. The addition of a teleportation hall to a guild city would be akin to a human living in the Stone Age instantly transforming into a human living in the modern era. The teleportation hall would elevate the standard of a guild city by several levels. When the various superpowers received news of this addition, they were momentarily dumbfounded. None of them ever expected Zero Wing to have such a card. Meanwhile, the Zero Wing members inside Silverwing City reacted with surprise and joy. The guild leader is awesome. Those superpowers must be stupefied after this move. With the teleportation hall, Silverwing City will definitely become the heart of the neighboring kingdoms and even the Black Dragon Empire. Now, even if the superpowers are powerful, they won't be able to stop players from streaming into Silverwing City. Eventually, Silverwing City will become the #1 city in this region. Initially, Zero Wing's members all thought they were in for a bloody battle against the various superpowers. They never thought Chiffon would bring them such a surprise. Silverwing City was on a distant neutral map. With the addition of the teleportation hall to the city, adventurer teams and independent players could now save up on plenty of travel time by teleporting directly to the Orc Empire. Even though the teleportation fees would be exorbitant, many expert players would rather pay the higher fee than waste their precious time. The players of the neighboring kingdoms and empires were highly likely to visit Silverwing City. At that time, Silverwing City's player population might exceed 10 million, or even 20 million. The various superpowers' attempt to suppress Zero Wing economically had become an utter joke. The only problem remaining would be the superpowers covertly targeting Zero Wing's members. However, that problem could be easily resolved. Zero Wing's members could simply stop wearing their guild emblems and travel to other neutral maps to grind. Guild leader, just a moment ago, over 2,000 players visited the City Lord's mansion to lease shops from us. At this rate, it won't take more than half a day before we rent out all our shops, Liang Jing said excitedly as she read the statistics report she just received. Many NPC merchants had withdrawn from Silverwing City after Zero Wing implemented the ban on NPCs. As a result, many shops were vacant. However, with the current frenzy, Zero Wing didn't have to worry about finding tenants for these shops anymore. In fact, the number of players seeking to lease shops from the city outnumbered the NPC merchants that had left, by a factor of 10 or more. Now, Silverwing City's income surpassed even the previous total income of Zero Wing's 3 guild cities. Chiffon nodded, not at all surprised by this situation. However, we need to tweak the rates of our shops. Instead of just coins, anyone who wishes to lease shops in the city will also need to pay magic crystals, 1,000 magic crystals per week for shops in the city center and 300 magic crystals per week for shops in the outer area. Also, have the guild's members start making their way to Sky Spring City. In his previous life, any guild that gained the War God's Temple's recognition had practically been immune to economic suppression. The only way to hinder an official guild's development would be to destroy the said guild's guild city that housed the teleportation hall. Hence, the various superpowers had gone crazy fighting for the reserve seats. In fact, many powers would fight desperately just to secure a foreign aid position. Zero Wings becoming an official guild shortly after the first major update could be considered an incredibly fortunate matter. After all, the moment Zero Wing became an official guild, it was no longer competing on the same stage as the various superpowers. While it was indeed true that Zero Wing's current foundation was no match for that of the various superpowers, Zero Wing's potential was way above that of the superpowers. Now, all Zero Wing needed to do was completely seal the Secret Covenant Tower and use it to rapidly develop the guild's strength before the NPC forces began their invasion. If everything went well, Zero Wing would just have to sit back, watch as the various powers got eliminated, and harvest the territories of these eliminated powers afterward. Now, Zero Wing was in a race against time. As for struggling against the superpowers, that was simply a waste of precious time. After all, in the past, less than 20% of the superpowers had survived the NPC forces' invasion. Since the first major update had taken place much sooner this time, the outcome would most likely be even worse. Meanwhile, after hearing Chiffon's orders, Liang Jing said excitedly, "I'll have them start heading over now." Afterward, the members of Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor in Silverwing City teleported to Sky Spring City one after another. The mass migration instantly flooded the desolate streets of Sky Spring City with players. This scene also surprised the original inhabitants of Sky Spring City. Subsequently, Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor made an announcement to every player in Sky Spring City, stating that their two guilds would be imposing a lockdown on Sky Spring City and that any unaffiliated players caught trying to leave the city would be killed without question. For a time, Sky Spring City's players fell into turmoil. Although Sky Spring City's various powers couldn't understand why Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor were doing such a thing, locking down an NPC city was child's play for the two super first-rate guilds. Hence, after receiving the announcement, Sky Spring City's various powers promptly fled the city, migrating their base of operations to other NPC cities. This, in turn, made Sky Spring City the exclusive haven of Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor. At this time, a gigantic black eagle circled above the city. Sitting on the Thunder Eagle's back, Unyielding Heart pointed at the dozen or so flying mounts patrolling nearby and said proudly, "Brother Black Flame, Sky Spring City is now sealed off completely. Our two guilds have organized a flying patrol squad to secure the skies. Now, not even a bird can fly out of the city. It is indeed amazing. Players can't fly out even if they want to." Shifeng felt a trace of admiration as he looked at Unyielding Souls and Crimson Emperor's flying mounts. He had to admit that the super first-rate guilds were indeed powerful. In an era where flying mounts were incredibly rare, Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor had actually managed to secure so many. Moreover, by the looks of it, these flying mounts were of considerably high quality. Even the weakest among them was at the advanced common rank, with 2 or 3 of them even reaching the basic extraordinary rank. If a player did not possess an advanced extraordinary rank flying mount, they wouldn't stand a chance against the coalition of these flying mounts. However, Illusory Words shook her head at Unyielding Heart's words. Unlike Unyielding Heart, she didn't have a very optimistic view of the situation. "I'm afraid the various superpowers will start paying even closer attention to us now. If we march boldly into the Secret Covenant Tower, I believe it won't be long before news of it gets out. At that time, they will definitely do everything they can to investigate the matter. If that happens, the time we can keep the secret hidden will be very short. And once the various superpowers find out about the Tier 3 legacies, all of them on the Eastern continent will disregard all costs to contest over the tower. With the amount of time we have, I'm afraid we won't be able to secure many advantages from the tower. Under normal circumstances, their series of actions would have already caught plenty of attention. Now, they had even become the focus of the superpowers. Meanwhile, no secret could be kept forever, especially with massive organizations like their guilds. No matter how hard they tried to keep the Secret Covenant Tower's secret hidden, the secret would eventually get out. The only way to prevent the secret from leaking would be to avoid informing the members of their guild and prevent their guild members from entering the Secret Covenant Tower at all. However, they couldn't afford to take such an action. Indeed. Shifeng nodded. He very much agreed with Illusory Words' worries. Compared to Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart, Shifeng knew much more clearly just how much of an impact the Secret Covenant Tower would have on the continent of God's domain. Once the tower's secret got out, the resulting struggle wouldn't be a simple competition between superpowers. Instead, it would be a fight to the death. Quite a few superpowers had even perished during the struggle back then. However, we have already acted. We can't possibly avoid entering the tower now, right? Unyielding Heart also understood that the secret would get out very quickly once they began sending their members into the tower. In fact, the secret would still leak even if they allowed only a small number of the guild's confidants into the tower's 30th floor and below. No. Shifeng shook his head. Smiling, he said, "We aren't exactly without options to take full control of the Secret Covenant Tower. What other options do we have?" Unyielding Heart asked as he looked at Shifeng curiously. In his opinion, once the secret got out, their 3 guilds wouldn't be able to retain their monopoly of the Secret Covenant Tower. The only thing they could do now was grind for as many Tier 3 legacies as possible before the inevitable occurred. Illusory Words also turned to look at Shifeng, a trace of confusion in her eyes. "You'll understand once you take a look at this," Shifeng said as he sent a document to the 2 people. He then added, "You must keep this matter a secret. You absolutely cannot let other people know about it. Otherwise, you will no longer have any connection with the Secret Covenant Tower in the future. In contrast, if we succeed in this matter, your two guilds can each occupy 25% of the Secret Covenant Tower's shares. What is it? Is this thing you speak of really so amazing? Unyielding Heart felt that Shifeng was indulging in hyperbole. The latter spoke as if the Secret Covenant Tower was already in the bag. You're not talking about the Tier 4 promotion quest information, right? Illusory Words joked. Shaking his head, Shifeng said, "You'll understand once you see it. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World." Immediately, Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words stopped speaking and opened the file Shifeng sent them. However, as soon as they read the information, their jaws dropped, their eyes widened in disbelief, and their hearts pounded with shock. Looking at Shifeng, Unyielding Heart asked in a quivering voice, "Is this real?" The thing that Shifeng had just shown them completely exceeded Unyielding Heart's imagination. In fact, compared to it, the information on the Tier 4 promotion quest was worth less than dust. After all, the thing that Shifeng showed them could completely rewrite the status quo in God's domain. A small mobile fortress. Chapter 2752, Shifeng's Madness. Chapter 2752, Shifeng's Madness. So, this is your true trump card? When Illusory Words looked at the information displayed before her, she couldn't help finding Shifeng beyond her ken. First, it was the teleportation hall. Then, it was the Secret Covenant Tower. Now, there was even a small mobile fortress. Not only did Shifeng reveal one secret after another, but every secret was also more amazing than the other. At this point, she even wondered whether Shifeng still had more astonishing secrets and trump cards hidden. She got the impression he was simply waiting for his enemies to come at him so that he could use them as zero-wing stepping stones. Simultaneously, she felt fortunate that Crimson Emperor did not oppose zero-wing. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sort of, Shifeng said, chuckling. "May I know if you two are interested now?" In reality, even Shifeng coveted the small mobile fortress. However, although he had the design for it now, he barely had any of the necessary materials to construct it. Incidentally, he could pull two wealthy guilds into the endeavor. Taking a deep breath, Illusory Words turned to look at Shifeng and demanded, "Out with it. How do you want to do this?" Unyielding Heart also nodded in agreement with Illusory Words' question. He wanted to hear Shifeng's plans. "You've seen the small mobile fortress's basic information already." Smiling faintly, Shifeng said, "The wealth needed to construct it is astonishing. I can confidently say that even if we empty out your two guilds, we still won't have enough resources to build it." Neither Illusory Words nor Unyielding Heart refuted Shifeng's words. Although Shifeng did not show them the requirements for constructing the small mobile fortress, even a fool could tell that the cost of such a terrifying sky fortress would be astronomical. It definitely wasn't something current superpowers could afford. "I don't need you to pay for the fortress's construction cost. However, I will need your two guilds to pay 2 million magic crystals and 5 million gold coins each for the Secret Covenant Tower's shares. What do you think?" Elaborating on his point, Shifeng said, "Once we fully occupy the Secret Covenant Tower, we can collect entrance fees from other players. For example, we can charge 2 magic crystals or 1 gold coin. Your two guilds will each get 25% of the profits. Of course, before this, I still need your two guilds to lend me your help. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to accomplish this task." At Shifeng's words, Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart began pondering in silence. What Shifeng said was simply too astonishing. If they followed his plan, they would basically be declaring war on the Eastern continent's other superpowers. Moreover, it would be irreconcilable. Of course, if Shifeng's plan succeeded, Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul would stand at the top of the Eastern continent. To put it simply, this was a gamble. Shifeng was not at all surprised to see the two's reactions. In reality, he had planned to carry out such a plan since the very beginning. However, instead of revealing his full plan right off the bat, he had chosen to reveal it sequentially to the two guilds. Otherwise, they would most likely have rejected it then and there. Zero Wing wouldn't be able to become a true titan in God's domain in that case. Only by securing the secret Covenant Tower could Zero Wing continually produce Tier 3 players in large numbers. After all, a complete Tier 3 legacy could be used only 9 times, at most. In other words, a Tier 3 legacy could, at best, produce 9 Tier 3 players. After a Tier 3 legacy's uses were exhausted, it would disappear automatically, and one would have to find another complete Tier 3 legacy. Hence, it was necessary to keep sending players to explore the secret Covenant Tower. However, if Zero Wing held the tower for only a short period, the small advantage it would gain wouldn't be enough for the guild to undergo a qualitative transformation. Only by having complete control over the tower would Zero Wing build a foundation solid enough to dominate God's domain. Now that Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul had seen the preliminary parts of his plan coming to fruition, the two guilds would also have more confidence in Zero Wing. Meanwhile, Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart simultaneously contacted their respective superiors and secretly discussed the partnership Shifeng proposed. At this time, Zero Wing had given them 2 options. Moreover, they had to choose between these options right now. The first option was to give up on further cooperation and focus only on obtaining some benefits from the secret Covenant Tower. Afterward, the tower would no longer have any connection with their 2 guilds, becoming the competition ground of the other superpowers, instead. The second option was to further their cooperation with Zero Wing, taking full control of the secret Covenant Tower and making an enemy of every other superpower on the eastern continent. If their plan succeeded, their guilds would gain an endless stream of resources and Tier 3 players. If they failed, it wouldn't be surprising if their guilds disbanded. This was a gamble that put everything on the line. After discussing for more than 10 minutes, Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart simultaneously disconnected their calls and looked at Shifeng. Guild leader Black Flame, Crimson Emperor has decided to take your gamble this time. However, we have a condition for doing so, Illusory Words said slowly. If you cannot agree to this condition, we cannot further our partnership. Brother Black Flame, it is the same for my side, as well, Unyielding Heart said with a bitter smile. You are playing with too big a fire this time. Our hesitation is natural. Go ahead. Shifeng wasn't at all surprised by this response. After all, the bet he proposed basically involved their guild's life or death. However, not everyone would have the opportunity to make such a bet, either. The 2 guilds should know this as well, which was why they did not refuse his offer outright. Instead, they had chosen to accept his offer while increasing their chances of survival as much as possible by adding conditions. In fact, it would be strange if they didn't do so. I'm guessing the requirement of our 2 guilds should be the same. With a helpless smile, Illusory Words said, if Zero Wing's plan this time fails, Crimson Emperor wants half of Silverwing City's profits. Unyielding Heart nodded in agreement. The price Shifeng was asking their 2 guilds to pay was no laughing matter. If the plan really failed, their guilds would be doomed for sure. However, if they had Silverwing City's income, they could more or less survive the ordeal. That won't be a problem, Shifeng answered without the slightest bit of hesitation. Since he had invited the 2 guilds into an alliance, he naturally had to provide them with a safe path of retreat. Otherwise, who would be willing to take such a risk? After all, even if Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul secured only a small advantage through the secret Covenant Tower, they could still become titans in God's domain, unlike Zero Wing. And even if the 2 guilds managed to gain full control over the tower, their situation would improve only slightly. They would be a step ahead of the various superpowers but still be no match for the 5 great super guilds. BVEB Shifeng's decisiveness stunned Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart. In their opinion, Silverwing City was Zero Wing's last path of retreat. It was also one of Zero Wing's main sources of income right now and would most likely remain so in the future. One could say that so long as Silverwing City remained standing, Zero Wing would continue to survive in God's domain. However, Shifeng had agreed to give its income away without hesitation. What the 2 of them did not know was that Shifeng had never once deemed Silverwing City or Stone Forest City that important. The small mobile fortress was the way to go. Even if his plan failed this time and he managed to gather only a small portion of the small mobile fortress's construction materials, he would have profited massively. In his previous life, Guilds had been willing to exchange 3 main guild cities for one small mobile fortress, let alone a measly basic city. Even then, no guild had accepted the trade. Following this, Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart signed a guild contract with Shifeng on behalf of their respective guilds. As stipulated in the contract, Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul would do everything they could to support Zero Wing during this time. Both guilds would also pay 2 million magic crystals and 5 million gold coins to Zero Wing. In exchange, Zero Wing would have to give up all of Silverwing City's income to the 2 guilds should the plan fail. When the guild contract took effect, both Illusory Words and Unyielding Heart breathed out a deep sigh of relief. This was undoubtedly the scariest and craziest wager they had participated in their entire lives. Brother Black Flame, what do you need us to do next? Unyielding Heart asked Shifeng. With the contract signed, their 2 guilds would move according to Shifeng's arrangement. Moreover, Unyielding Heart was also curious about what Shifeng needed their 2 guilds' strength for. Although he didn't know what it cost to construct a small mobile fortress, the price definitely wasn't something even 5 superpowers working together could afford. Otherwise, mobile fortresses wouldn't be so rare in the various kingdoms and empires. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. There's nothing much you can do now. Your 2 guilds just need to focus on locking down the secret Covenant Tower. At the same time, send some trustworthy members to explore the 30th floor and beyond to obtain as many Tier 3 legacies as possible. After giving the matter further thought, Shifeng said, in addition, I'll need your 2 guilds to organize a 100-man team of peak experts, which will follow me to a place. A 100-man team of peak experts. Shifeng's words shocked Unyielding Heart. Even working together, Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul wouldn't be able to form such a team. At best, they would be able to bring out 70 or 80 peak experts. Can you tell us where we're going? Illusory Words frowned at Shifeng's words. Peak experts were the pillars of their guilds. Fielding so many peak experts for one operation would place a heavy burden on their guilds. Chuckling, Shifeng answered honestly, the Ruined Mountain Range. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,